On Good Friday, a woman in active labor walked to the delivery suite. She didn't walk because she chose to. She walked because there was no wheelchair. Shandale Ballantyne was a 33-year-old, and it was her first child. She'd been classified high risk. She had hypertension. The hospital knew all of this. Baby Ramonte Rakai Ranger did not come home. And the Jamaican government, whose Ministry of Health is asking its citizens to have more children, is presiding over a maternity system with a maternal mortality ratio nearly double the United Nations target. A system where 2 in 3 trained nurses have left the country. A system where a classified high-risk mother walked to her delivery suite because there was no wheelchair at the facility that had received $23.5 billion over a decade. Tonight, Lead Story Prime hears first from the mother, then from the data, then from the people who must answer for both. We also want to be clear about something before we begin this investigation into the death of babies and mothers in hospitals. The baby of Ramonte Rakai Ranger, that investigation is ongoing. The autopsy is scheduled for April 28. Lead Story Prime is not here to prejudge the outcome of that investigation, but our conversation tonight is about the experience of a mother in a hospital and what she saw, felt, and what she needs. Inside this show, later, we'll be joined by Professor Marvin Reed, head of the Medical Association of Jamaica, Dr. Giselle Rowe, consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, and Dr. Delroy Frey, clinical coordinator of the Western Regional Health Authority. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and this is Lead Story Prime. Joining us now on the phone is Shandale Ballantyne, the mother of baby Ramonte Rakai Ranger. Ms. Ballantyne, are you with us?
Yes, good night.
Thank you so very much for joining us tonight. We know it's not an easy thing to do. We're really grateful for your courage to be part of this program. We're holding your story with the care it deserves. Talk to us first about your anticipation before Good Friday, before any of this. What were you preparing for and feeling as you were going to become a mother for the first time? What were you looking forward to?
Well, I was looking forward to being blessed finally, to being blessed. All the years dreaming of having a child, all the years of imagining myself being pregnant, all the years that I've dreamt of being pregnant, and it finally came true. And I was super excited, trust me, super excited. I couldn't wait, hearing that I am pregnant. I didn't even believe when they first told me I was pregnant. I swore it was a mistake. Because being at my age, I was like, really? All this time it never happened, and I know it was to happen. So I was really excited. I was looking forward to seeing my child in my arms.
You're 33 years old. Take us back now to Good Friday, as much as you're able to. Don't tell us things like clinical details. You don't have that information, but how you felt. What was going through your mind when you arrived at the hospital that day?
All right, so I was in there from the week before, so I was basically in there for a week. When they told me they were going to induce me, I was kind of excited at the same time because I was like, finally, we'll get to meet the baby. Me literally put my whole trust in the hospital, in the caretaker, the nurses and doctors that were dealing with me. Me trust everything. Me not expect that nothing was going to go wrong. Me trust everything to go right in their hands.
You'd gone to the hospital before, you were classified as high risk. You're now there at the hospital. At any point in time during the experience, did you feel heard? Did you feel that people around you understood what you were going through and what you needed?
Yes. The whole experience leading up to the day of delivery was amazing at the hospital. I didn't have any problem. The nurses were nice to me. They all spoke to me properly and everything, just up until that day.
Talk us through that day. What happened? What do you remember?
So I was induced the Thursday, the day before. I got induced at 10:30 in the morning. Started to feel the pain shortly after being induced. I never really had any contractions. I don't know what contractions felt like before that because I wasn't even experiencing Braxton Hicks as yet. So when the pain started to come on, the mothers around me started to say, yeah, that's the pain. I started to explain to them and they were guiding me through it and telling me, yes, that's what's happening and so forth. So I still wasn't in any panic mode or anything, but I was feeling a lot of pain. And then eventually in the evening, the pain kind of died down back. I went to bed. I woke up the next morning. The doctor called me around the examination room again. She said that if they might induce me again, which they did about 11:30 that morning. So after being induced for the second time, the pain came back even stronger than before, like really strong this time. By after 1 to 2, made the doctor me a scream, I beat the wall. I remember one time going back around to the examination room before the water burst. I did feel like I really want to pass stool, and I was in so much pain that I ended up doing it on the floor right in the examination room. I couldn't reach to the bathroom. I was so embarrassed because as I come off the bed, they put me on the CT machine to listen to the baby's heart rate. His heart rate was fine. At one point, I even heard like the baby literally came and was knocking on the thing that was on my belly. He was active, fine. I passed stool right there on the floor. They sent me back to my bed, and then about 3 o'clock, a nurse came around to my bed. She connected back the machine to me again on my bed, and she put her hands up in the vajayjay, and she said that the water burst. Figuring that she burst the water. I wasn't even sure what was happening. So after that, she said that she's going to send me over to the delivery ward. And she left. But nobody came back till about after 4 to 5. A different nurse came back.
So this is at what time? So when it first started, what time was that?
When the pain started about between 1 to 2, really intense.
In the afternoon. When she said you were going to the delivery ward, what time was that?
3 o'clock.
And what time?
3 o'clock.
Okay. And you said nobody came back promptly?
No, up to 5.
Okay.
So when this nurse came back, she was the first bad encounter. She came back at 4. She was really like just miserable and rough, and she come now and she pack up my things then, and she said she was going for a wheelchair and come back, but she come back without the wheelchair. She just come back with a trolley. She pack up my stuff and she said I have to walk over. So I was on the surgical ward because the maternity ward was full. So they had few of us on the surgical ward staying. So I had to walk from the surgical ward through the maternity ward to the delivery suite. So I was literally like holding onto the wall, walking, and she was just rushing me, come on, mother, come on. And she was just being a little bit mean and miserable. I mean, I said to Mommy, you can't really need to be here because I'm my first time. So anyways, we went over to the delivery suite and she let me off over there. She brought over my jacket and my things. I spoke to the nurses at the front and then they put me on the CT machine again. That is about after 5. I stayed on the machine for about 20 minutes and then they took me over to the delivery suite, to the delivery room. When I went into the delivery room, a doctor came in. She checked the cervix. It was still at 4 centimeters. She said she's stretching it to 7. She stretched it to 7 because after she finished, she said, you're now at 7 centimeters. So after she stretched it, she said she stretched it with her hands. She used her hands to stretch it. After she stretched it, she told me to do some squats. I weren't able to do the squats. I was in tremendous pain, and this point the blood was coming down. I started to notice blood in the pan that I was sitting over. I sat on the pan for about 3 minutes after she told me to do the squats, and then I got up off my own and went back on the delivery bed. That's when the nurse, yes.
You're talking to me about a traumatic experience that you're relating to me, you're relating to the nation, something that is personal to you, personal to the family, personal to the father of the child as well. When you realized Ramonte was not coming home with you, can you describe what that moment was like? You don't have to tell us too much, but how did that feel?
Well, it left me in a state of shock, like we really not believe it. She said that the baby was breathing for the first 15 minutes after being born, but they got him to breathe again. So I'm not sure what transpired from the baby born 8:30 to 1 o'clock, but something happened and the baby stopped breathing again, she said. But if he's on oxygen, when I went to see the baby, the first time the baby was breathing on its own, his chest was going up and down, but they had a tube down his throat, pumping air into his mouth. They're saying, well, when I went down to the nursery the following morning to see the baby after it had passed, there was only 2 incubators in there. So I had asked the nurse, I said, weren't there any more incubators that the baby could have gone on? She said no, because there's only 2 and they already have babies in them and we can't take off those babies to put on your babies.
So that's a horrific tale then that you're telling me, something that you had to live through as an experience. How are you managing, Shandale? How is Ramon, the father of Ramonte, managing as well?
He's truly devastated because he was really looking forward to his first son. He has 2 beautiful daughters already, but he was really looking forward to the son, and I was looking forward to having my son, my first child. I was so excited. I felt blessed. I felt like God didn't forget me, you know. So I was truly excited, and he's devastated. So we just here have to be strong for each other.
Ms. Ballantyne, Ramonte's story is being heard tonight across Jamaica, and because of your willingness to speak, this is certainly something that will be heard by so many people. Thank you for trusting us with your story.
I just wanted to put one more thing in the story. You see, during the delivery, I thought the delivery experience would include them monitoring, because, you know, as a first-time mother, I watch a lot of videos on the internet, so I thought that the process, that's how I see, we will see them listening to the baby heart rate during the delivery. Nothing like that happened. I was just there with the nurse. She was instructing me. She said, push when you feel the pain, and I did push whenever the pain was coming. Sometimes she let go the foot and walked away. I had to be calling her back when the pain was sometimes, nurse, come, hold the foot again, because the pain will come. Not at no time at all during my delivery did they check the baby's heart rate to see. And the fact that the cord wrapped around the baby's neck twice at birth, if the baby was being monitored during the delivery process, I'm sure they would have known that.
Is this a horrific tale, one that speaks to not only your experience, but also hospitalization and labor and birth here in Jamaica? Shandale Ballantyne, thank you for trusting us with your story tonight inside Lead Story Prime.
Yeah, man.
Heartbreaking story there from Shandale. We'll take a break inside Lead Story Prime, and now look at the data.
Mind your business, JA with Jump Online. Are your business? They keep your government in line.
Use the MP tracker. If you watch how them a move, the account a meter help them improve.
Take action.
Use the jump tool.
Track your MP cause they work for you. Mind your business, JA with Jump Online.
Let's monitor government at jumpja.org, funded by the European Union.
I'm me, the stylist, no scam and style me.
From the market to the farm to the office, money talk is everywhere. But are you making sense or nonsense? The Bank of Jamaica brings you common sense with BOJ. Real stories, real laughs, and real lessons to help you protect, grow, and manage your money. Mattress savings,
At least my mattress. You charge me to sleep on it.
partner plan,
Remember last year we needed our payouts early, but Miss Pam gave it to her cousin first?
or a sketchy loan flyer.
Electrifying deals.
See why making the right financial choices is pure common sense. Brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, empowering everyday Jamaicans one episode at a time.
Grandpa, it's 2026. You can't keep hiding all your money in every single pocket forever.
Thanks so much for staying with us inside Lead Story Prime as we discuss life, loss and labour wards here in Jamaica. We just before the break heard from Shandale Ballantyne. Now we're going to take a look at what the data says about the system she entered, because the government is asking Jamaicans to have more children. So we're having this in the context where people are looking, people are watching, and people are trying to figure out what's going on. On our panel this evening, we have Professor Marvin Reed, head of the Medical Association of Jamaica, Dr. Giselle Rowe, consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, and Dr. Delroy Frey, clinical coordinator of the Western Regional Health Authority. Welcome to you all inside Lead Story Prime. Now, you've all heard from Shandale Ballantyne. You've heard the data. First question then to you all. Let me start with you, Dr. Rowe. You are an OBGYN, consultant, obstetrician, gynecologist. For people who are trying to figure out then Shandale's story, hearing what happened, talk us through this, because she was classified high risk, hypertensive. She'd gone there before, she got pills, she went back because it was really bad. She was in active labor inside a hospital. She wasn't outside, she didn't have birth at home. What does the protocol require for clinical staff present at delivery? What are we expecting to be happening? Because she said she watched TV to see some things that should be happening. What should we see happening on the ground?
All right, so as you rightly said, we do clinically stratify our patients. So once we have a patient that is high risk, it means that the level of monitoring is going to increase. All right, you did say something about active labor. I heard her speak about when she went up to 4 centimeters. Up to that point, she'd have been in latent labor. She also did speak about monitoring of the fetal heart rate. So what is standard is that when you're in the early parts of labor, before we get to the 4 centimeters, the monitoring is less, all right, because you're not doing much, the cervix is not doing much, and there's not much stress on the fetus, on the baby. Now, once we get to active labor, which is greater than 4 centimeters, then the monitoring increases. She may require continuous monitoring. As I listened to her recollection of the events, I did hear where she said monitoring was done, they checked the fetal heart, they moved me, but they checked the fetal heart, then the doctor came. So I feel like the monitoring of the fetal heart, based on what she's saying, was fine. The question is, what was the outcome of the monitoring? So what was seen on the monitoring? And when we do these strips, based on the heart rate of the baby, then we'll know if we need to intervene. I heard that a lot of the assessments, her cervix seemed not to have changed in a timely fashion. So at some interval, we may need to make a decision to change the route of delivery. Again, without the full information, the docket, to see what's the sequence, because her recollection is gonna, be emotional as well. She's not gonna remember all the timelines. So I would need to see the timelines to know if there was any breach of protocol.
Think outside now of this particular case, just generally, when we're high risk at the hospital, what is it that we're looking for our women to have?
We monitor mommy and baby. We're looking at mommy's vitals and baby's vitals. And as I said, the interval is going to change depending on where you are in labor. When you're in active labor, probably every hour you might have your vitals done, versus if you're not in active labor, it might be 4 hourly on a standard ward. So again, without knowing the timestamp. So every hour, say you're in active labor, have a fetal heart assessment. Once we're good and you're progressing well on the charts, then we continue to a vaginal delivery. If there is any reason, whether it be that mommy's blood pressure becomes an issue, because for her it was an issue, If it becomes uncontrolled or more uncontrolled in labor, then we may make a decision for cesarean section. If it is that the baby's heartbeat has any abnormalities, then another decision for C-section would need to be made.
So then that's the context in which we're having this conversation. Now, Dr. Rowe has said we need the docket, we need the information. The best person to help us with that is Dr. Frey, who's on Zoom with us, because you conducted the internal review into the death of baby Ramonte Rakai Ranger. You reviewed a 33-page file filled with the chief obstetrician there, filled with information, and you told the Gleaner on April 10th that everything was done, a quote from you here, according to the book. Talk to us about what the record showed you there at the Cornwall Regional Hospital. Dr. Frey, you're on mute, unfortunately, so as you're speaking to us, we can't hear you as you talk to us, because Chandale Ballantyne just told us her story of what took place. But after an investigation there at the Cornwall Regional Hospital, something that the Minister of Health and Wellness has said, that wherever the chips let them fall where they may, an investigation was in fact necessary, and he was expecting it to be done. You have now carried this out. Dr. Frey?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for inviting me here. But I must first say that, you know, I admire Miss Ballantyne for her braveness to come nationally to discuss this case. I mean, it's not easy, and I would like to express our condolences on behalf of the Ministry of Health, the Western Regional Health Authority, and the Cornwall Regional Hospital towards Miss Ballantyne and her family. It is a very sad situation. We are saddened by it. The team that looked after her is sad as well. And I can tell you this, Miss Quarry, when I was asked to come on this program, I was told that we'll be talking about, you know, what is the status of the health situation after Melissa. I didn't know it was going to involve this case, because from an ethical perspective, this type of case we wouldn't discuss in the public medium. And you know,
but you have discussed it, Dr. Frey. The Gleaner reporting on this.
Hold on. Just hear me, Truna. I would have discussed this before consultation with Ms. Ballantyne, and I want to say that very clearly at this point in time. What I said in that interview, you know, the time that we had that, I sat. In fact, I should tell you what my portfolio is. I'm a consultant general surgeon, trauma surgeon. I'm the clinical coordinator of the Western Regional Hospital, looks after clinical affairs, and you could say, you know, look at the audit of things. I sat with the expert who look after that patient to ensure that, you know, from my perspective, I was satisfied with what was done in managing this patient. And based on what was shown to me and what, you know, I saw in the notes, I was, you know, happy that, you know, all the things that were necessary for the delivery, a safe delivery of this patient was done. And that is why it saddens us to see that the outcome is like that. And that's all I would want to say on this case. If you want to ask anything about else that it and speak on, but
Dr. Frey, I'm so sorry, you just broke up a moment. Not a problem, Dr. Frey, and the broader context in which we're having this conversation, not only about the case of Miss Ballantyne, because for a moment there you just broke up, so I'm understanding you to be saying that you don't want to speak about the details of this case, then given the review that has taken place.
No, not at all.
Of course. So the details of this case that have taken place, though, are in the public domain.
In fact, let it be very clear. It's unethical to discuss a case of this matter in a public media like this. So, I don't think from a medical perspective it's correct. That's my view. That's my view.
Give us then understanding and context in which Cornwall Regional Hospital stands at this point, however, because this is a type A facility on the western side of the island that is expected to deal with major incidents that it now has to deal with. You had a protest in January with members of staff saying that they were concerned about the facility there and the kind of patient care that could be meted out thanks to concerns about Cornwall Regional Regional Hospital still not being up to date. What should Jamaicans understand about the kind of care and support that the Cornwall Regional Hospital can provide at this time?
Right. Thanks for that question. So, as you know, Cornwall Regional Hospital and all our hospitals in the region, they were badly affected by Melissa. And I'm a scientist. I'll give you data. Prior to Hurricane Melissa, when we had to move out of the main hospital into makeshift areas around the hospital to provide type A care, we were able to provide bed capacity for our patient in the West, 350 beds. After the passage of Melissa, we were down, based on the damages to our ward spaces, to 150 beds. Now, it takes no rocket science to understand that if you move from 350 to 150, you are going to have overcrowded in your accident and emergency department. And that's where that protest that you talk about came from. Because, in fact, I want to pause at this stage and I want to congratulate the staff at the Cornwall Regional Hospital post-Melissa, especially the staff in the accident and emergency department who had to work under conditions that were difficult. And it would be very, very interesting that we speak about this. But there are successful outcomes in those difficult times that happen in that hospital. Major motor vehicle accident, major gunshot wound that came in, and these patients were successfully treated and discharged from hospital. So, at times it saddened me as a person who is on the ground and see the problems we have there. But I want to say something more to you. We have moved subsequently since the passage of Melissa. We have repaired the roofs in these places. So at Cornwall Regional Hospital, and we are running about over 300 beds now to look after our patient. At Cornwall Regional Hospital, we have an obstetric gynecologist service that is well equipped with trained staff, trained equipment, trained nurses in our delivery suite in order to execute care.
And it's clear that you've taken this so seriously, understanding the kind of dislocation that would have happened after Hurricane Melissa, the loss of so many beds, and the work that would have been done by the hospital team. I'm going to pull in Professor Reed here in a moment because he represents some of those doctors who are down there, and continue this conversation inside Lead Story Prime.
I'm me the stylist, no scam and style me.
From the market to the farm to the office, money talk is everywhere. But are you making sense or nonsense? The Bank of Jamaica brings you common sense with BOJ. Real stories, real laughs, and real lessons to help you protect, grow, and manage your money. Mattress savings.
At least my mattress, you charge me to sleep on it.
Partner plan. Remember last year we needed our payouts early? But Miss Pam gave it to her cousin first.
Or a sketchy loan flyer.
Electrifying deals.
See why making the right financial choices is pure common sense. Brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, empowering everyday Jamaicans one episode at a time.
Grandpa, it's 2026. You can't keep hiding all your money in every single pocket forever.
Start your journey with a Jane Bank Small Business Loan with small business loans with as little as $10,000 and up to $4 million.
The time is 8:30.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
We're discussing life, loss and labor wards today inside Lead Story Prime as we take you through what's going on in our hospitals. Infant mortality, something to look at. Maternal mortality, also something to look at. And the best person to take us through the data and the information that we need is Amoy Harriet. She takes us through an overview of the situation, not only here in Jamaica, but what global standards can show us about where we are today.
Almost every pregnant woman, more than 95%, gives birth in a medical facility. Nearly all births are attended by trained professionals, and antenatal care widely accessible. On paper, the system is working, but step inside the labor ward and a different story begins to unfold. Despite that high level of access, Jamaica is still losing its mothers and babies at rates that raise concern. In Jamaica, between 13 and 16 babies die for every 1,000 births. The global benchmark for top-performing countries is as low as 2 to 4. Locally, the majority occur within the first 28 days of life, and most critically, within the first 24 to 72 hours. In 2023 alone, 480 newborns died during that neonatal period. The leading causes: birth, asphyxia, and prematurity, together responsible for nearly 3/4 of these deaths. Then there's maternal mortality. Jamaica records around 130 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. The global target is fewer than 70. And while that number alone is concerning, the trend tells an even deeper story. In 2021, maternal deaths spiked to 186, and the country has yet to return to pre-pandemic levels. Statistics aside, these are women who entered the system expecting care, but didn't make it out. So where's the breakdown? Jamaica has built the infrastructure: clinics, hospitals, trained personnel. But increasingly, there's a disconnect between what is reported and what is experienced. Capacity has long been a major concern because behind every statistics is a workforce under pressure. Jamaica has just 0.8 nurses and midwives per 1,000 people. In countries like the United States, that figure is over 17 per 1,000. Jamaica reports 99.8% of births attended by skilled personnel. Facility-based delivery exceeds 95%. Antenatal care coverage is approximately 87 to 99%, depending on the measure used. By every access metric, Jamaica has built the infrastructure. Yet, the mother at the center of this week's case, classified high risk, 38 weeks pregnant, has stated publicly that a single nurse attended her during delivery. Even more telling, 2 out of every 3 nurses trained locally have migrated overseas. The government has responded with a multi-billion-dollar scholarship program, but the shortage remains. And according to regional health authorities, Jamaica is among countries without enough healthcare workers to meet the demand. Here we have a system where nearly everyone can reach care, but not everyone receives it at the level they need when they need it most. And in labor wards across the island, that difference can mean everything.
Thanks so much, Amoy. Let me pull Professor Marvin Reed in here as head of the Medical Association of Jamaica. Give us context, give us background, help us understand. Life, loss and labor wards is in the context tonight of a national conversation about having increased births in this country. It's against the backdrop of a horrific loss, but also babies are born every single day here and go home to be with their families. So help us zoom out a little bit and better appreciate what our healthcare system gives us.
Right. As the story that was shared here tells you, every single loss is meaningful and painful. And so within that context, on behalf of the MAJ, similarly, I would just like to extend my condolences to the family of Ms. Ballantyne. The issue, though, is that if you take a wider view of the scenario, on an average, we deliver roughly about 30,000 babies annually. And these babies end up going home to parents and families, and everybody is happy. As you pointed out in your short segment, we still have an issue on the mother side where, unfortunately, we will have some numbers of mummies dying per year. And on the baby side, we still have some issues where the numbers of babies who die, especially in the first 28 days, are still relatively high against global standards. So there are many factors. One factor that was highlighted in this segment has to do with the human resource. Other factors that may be there relates to what we're looking at is the level of care that is delivered at the time that it is needed most. So when there's a mismatch between that, as you quite rightly say, you can have an issue. So you can think about it in terms of at the institutional level or the system level, and you can think about it at the individual level as health professionals, how we deliver that care to that individual. We recognize, as we quite rightly speak, that the system is under pressure because the demand on the system is relatively high compared to the capacity of the system to give. You spoke about the actual numbers of health professionals, but it's not just the numbers that are important. The quality or the mix of the health professionals is just as important.
What kind of mix are we looking at? Because we currently know that we have 0.8 nurses and midwives per 1,000 people. 2 in 3 nurses trained here have left the country. We know that you might want the mix, so we don't have it. At what point in time do you, as head of MAJ, your association, look and say, all right, not only is that mix important, but the people are important, and the workforce issues that we have in public hospitals are now to constitute a patient safety emergency because we just don't have the people that we need.
And so again, we have to make choices. It's not a simple thing, but we have to make choices. Make choices as a nation, make choices as individuals. So what are some of the issues? The issues are not yesterday or today. They have been long-standing. So one issue has to do with the cadre of individuals or the number of persons who we can hire in the health system. So we train them, the universities and the nursing schools and the various things train them, but many of them, after they've gotten the experience and stuff, move. And so when you look at the system, at the entry level, we're about at equilibrium. But as you go through the specialist need, especially the mid-specialist need, you'll find that those are the areas in which we are the shortest.
So people get specialized here in Jamaica, they do the work, and then they go to greener pastures, areas that better compensate them now for the additional specialist roles that they are able to provide. Let me pull in Dr. Rowe here for a minute, because Jamaica compared to the rest of the Caribbean, and that's something that I want to pull in all three of you as well on, because the data shows where Jamaica sits in the Caribbean. And well, on maternal mortality, Cuba, 36 per 1,000. Barbados, per 100,000 rather, 57 per 100,000. Trinidad and Tobago, 67. So, slowly but surely, all near the target, set at the Sustainable Development Goal level of 70. Jamaica, 130. Not even close. That's concerning, that's dangerous. Dr. Rowe, from a clinical perspective, what are some of the structural differences in those healthcare systems that account for the gap in outcomes? And what happened that Jamaica can't reach there, so?
All right, so while we do in fact have the type A institutions, we still may not be able to, and you did highlight that a lot of the neonatal deaths were because of prematurity.
Yes.
So we really don't have enough stuff in the NICU. We don't have enough ventilators and all of those things. And then we also have a limit to the gestational age, the age at which a baby is born, that we can actually sustain life locally.
So when people watch on television, for example, an incredibly tiny baby, really early,
24 weeks,
teeny tiny, and they're able to sustain them. Jamaica doesn't have that ability all over the place just yet.
No, and so for us, we tend to say, boy, if you're going to have a chance, 28 weeks or above. And the 28-weeker is dicey. So we really can't care for the babies that are much smaller. And I think that's where people like Cuba are leading, because Cuba has a lot of technology. So, and the US
under
for
sanctions
sure,
right
but
now,
yes.
deeply constrained, no oil there, doing their best though, still able to have higher figures than we do.
Infrastructure, yeah. So we do have the technical skills. We have the neonatologists, we have the maternal-fetal medicine specialists. So we have the people on the obstetric side that are caring for these patients that are high risk, and we have the specialists on the pediatric side that are caring for the newborns. But if you don't have the resources, sometimes it's the medication, it's the surfactant, it's just the time between the need for the drug and actually being able to access it. And again, just being able to care for the babies at that small age. I mean...
Right. So when you look at the maternal mortality component, a lot of it is driven by what we call hypertensive disease in pregnancy, and then in the latter part, it's related to the actual birth component, what happens during the birth component.
I want to talk to Dr. Frey about that, because as someone now who is in the hospital, clinical coordinator for the Western Regional Health Authority, you're seeing these things. How significant is it for you to be losing good nurses, especially those trained nurses that Professor Reed spoke about, and those people that you need now in your hospital system, that when they get to a point of now being able to provide those services might opt to leave and go elsewhere?
Well, I mean, it's a free society, you know. Everybody is always looking for greener pastures. It's hard to really, you provide as best as you can to, you know, hold these individuals. But if they have a better opportunity, they are going to choose that. But I drop off at the beginning. I mean, I had a problem getting logged on back. But there's two aspects of it. You know, Dr. Rowe mentioned some aspect of, you know, the birthing and what can go wrong. But there are two aspects I would like to emphasize, and this is for the public to understand. And the first one is that of compliance. We have a system that is set up in our, you know, primary health care facility where you look after mothers with their baby. And if you detect a high-risk pregnancy, you're going to refer to the Type A facility. And as Dr. Rowe has said, we have the expert in there who can guide you. The big question that a lot of people are not mentioning now, and I'm going to want to mention that here now. When you are given medication to take, how compliant are our patients with their medication? And a lot of our patients are not compliant. And I have evidence to support that, which I would not, you know, put out here. What I would do is make a strong plea to our people that when you are given medication, you should take the medication as prescribed.
But hold on, Dr. Frey, I'm not even that doctor, and I know that these people not follow any instruction. They feel good today, they take 2 tablets, they feel good enough to not take any more. They drank ginger tea, they had mint tea.
That is correct.
That seems to be a cultural problem then that goes deeply into our healthcare system, compromising the outcomes that you want to see.
That is correct. And it's not only maternal physiology and pathology that affect. Diabetes, high blood pressure, all of that. And let me go on to the second one, which is very important. And that one is misinformation. Misinformation. Everybody goes on Facebook. Everybody goes on TikTok. Everybody have their own idea of how something should be treated, etc. And those two aspects, along with what Dr. Rowe has mentioned, drives the problem out of proportion. What we should be doing here as we speak, as people are listening, we need compliance. And I can say one thing, which is, and I feel proud to say this. You talk about medication. Medication are available. The NHF provide almost all the medication that we need to
and that's a government-funded National Health Fund program that allows for people to have that access.
And I have had experience where, you know, you need a very crucial drug, something that would be needed to mature a baby long before birth. And if it's not available, and we make an application in time to the National Health Fund. I'm telling you, they will get that drug, they'll send it to us. So the system is there in place. We have to use the system and work with the system, but I want to make a strong plea about compliance.
I think
not only for maternal care,
yes,
diabetes, high blood pressure, not to mention cancer care.
There you go. And I think that importance of having that compliance talk with Jamaicans, helping them see that it matters in not only maternal cases but also others, is going to be incredibly important. Let's take a quick break then and come up with solutions. What do we look like as a country that takes our life loss and labor ward seriously? Stay with us inside Lead Story Prime.
Change does not happen overnight. It takes vision, commitment, and courage to reform.
So we created a number of executive agencies, which I believe, and I can say, having left this thing, was one of the most successful initiatives undertaken in the reform process.
But transformation isn't easy.
We found in several ministries, agencies, and departments, you had square pegs in round holes.
You could almost say that public sector transformation is not a JLP policy, it's not a PNP policy. It is national policy.
There was political willingness, there was bipartisan support for going through with the reforms, there was societal support, a lot of societal sacrifices. People of Jamaica made a lot of sacrifices. And businesses, the private sector, everybody was engaged in this journey.
We want to continue to reform the public sector, to allow the public sector to provide its services to the Jamaican people, provide services to the private sector. And the idea is that those services must be more accessible. Those services must be more affordable. Those services must be faster. They must be more personable and comfortable for the citizen.
Watch Building a Better Public Sector, a 4-part docuseries right here on CVM, commencing April 5 and aired every Sunday in April at 3 p.m. Brought to you by the Transformation Implementation.
Thanks so much for staying with us inside Lead Story Prime. This is our final segment, and we're looking for accountability. Not just talking about the problems here, but looking at what we can do to make this better for our country, for neighbors, and for ourselves. We'll be continuing our conversation with this incredible panel that we have here tonight. A panel filled with people who know way more than I do, and therefore I'm going to direct the questions to them. Let me start off first, having heard Dr. Frey, Professor Reed, about compliance, about the things that we need to be able to see. Let me set up this conversation by putting it in context. The context within which we're having this conversation is this. We are seeing a country ask questions. Everybody at this table has described a system working, but under stress. Mm-hmm. Everybody here has said, you know what, the data is describing a system that is moving, but sometimes in the wrong direction. 5 consecutive years, we've had 480 neonatal deaths in a single year. You said one death is horrific, 480 can't be great. Maternal mortality rate nearly double the target that we should have as a sustainable development target. A high-risk mother who went into a delivery room and she had to walk because there was no wheelchair. Is what is happening to mothers and babies in Jamaica's public hospitals a crisis or not, Professor Reed?
So based on the numbers, one would have to say, yes, it is a crisis. But the issue is relatively complex, so there's not going to be any easy fix. So on one hand, you have issues related to the system itself. So how best can we configure the system to deal with the load that it's been exposed to? On the other hand, you also have to look at what are the resources that are available to the practitioners in the system to be able enable them to do the work in a more efficient way.
Talk to me about that.
Well, so let's look at the neonatal figures that you just exposed. The biggest issues here is going to be prematurity. Babies are born before time. And so they are going to be, the best way to do it is to ensure that more women actually go on to full-term labor. So it means therefore that it has to start from before we actually reach the hospital. It has to start from the beginning of the pregnancy in terms of them attending antenatal care, having the appropriate antenatal care, the appropriate nutrition.
Going to clinic, getting the baby checked,
all of those
eating
things.
well.
Right.
The basics.
All right. So now that you reach to the hospital, the other thing now is, and the delivery does occur for whatever reason, the issue is, do we have the resources or the adequate system set up to be able to care for the babies? So things like number of incubators, the things like feeding the babies during that early stage, all the other necessary infrastructure. Do you have the NICU set up so that there's no infection or minimal infections, all of that sort of a thing? So you have those systematic issues that you have to deal with. Then you have the human resource issues. Do you have enough adequate nurses that you can have 2 or so per baby, that you don't have cross-contamination because you're so short? So it's not just one area that you have to work on. You have to look at it in a more global fashion.
That comprehensive look is what I'm going to pull you in for, Dr. Rowe, because you are the consultant OBGYN. You're the one who deals with the women and the mothers and the babies. Is what's happening in Jamaica with our mothers and our babies, especially in our public hospitals. Is it to be considered a crisis or not?
Yes, I would agree that in fact it is crisis level based on our numbers. We are seeing a great loss in our number of midwives. I mean, that's probably where we're seeing most of the loss. So even if we have adequate staffing on a shift, it may not be a midwife. You may have a nurse that's filling in. So the level of expertise and training may not be as we would want it to be. And that's because we are losing our specialist trained nurses. Equipment-wise, we want adequate fetal monitoring. So we're talking about the CTG or the cardiotocograph, the machine that gives us that tracing of the baby's heart. That's what helps us now, because outside of the prematurity, you're going to be looking at your hypoxic brain injuries, the babies that don't get enough oxygen in labor, whether it be cord or whatever is happening, and the baby comes out not doing what the baby should do. And a lot of those babies who do survive are the ones that you carry around forever, can't do anything on their own, all right? And so you want to make sure that while the patient is in labor, I mean, we know about mommy's side, but the fetal compartment, because we're talking about a neonatal loss in this setting, we want to make sure that there's adequate machines. If we have 10 patients in labor, most wards are not fitted with 10 machines.
So if you need 10
machines
incubators,
concurrently,
you don't have that
right. I mean,
in there.
for the monitoring in labor, you won't have that. So if a patient needs continuous monitoring, you may be sharing 3 machines across 10 patients.
And that's a functional issue then that we have there. As a hospital administrator then, Dr. Frey, I come to you, because you are now sitting from the vantage point of somebody who has to be on the ground with the people who are making these decisions there. Are you contextualizing, given the data that we have for mothers and babies in Jamaica, would you call what we have happening here in Jamaica's public hospitals a crisis or not?
Well, I mean, if you look at the data, one has to admit that we have a problem. We have a problem in terms of where we're going to go from here. And this is why it's important to analyze data, look at what you have and see how you improve it. I can tell you one thing. Your physical plant that you are operating in is absolutely important in the total care that you can give. A lot of other things that Dr. Rowe and Dr. Reed spoke about, but the physical plant itself.
That is the hospital.
I can tell you one thing. Yes, after Hurricane Melissa, our delivery suite was damaged. And I would love to invite you, Miss Corey, to come and look at how we refurbish that delivery suite and look at our delivery area. I will agree that in terms of the monitoring device, we would not have one for everyone. And this is where the training of our doctors here in Jamaica is absolutely important, because you are able to clinically prioritize who needs this machine in order to maximize one outcome. Absolutely important. And we have seen it with COVID, how we had to pivot in order to give the best care. When we are faced with a crisis, we can pivot to give the best care. And I would like to tell you something, that to diverge from what we are talking about. At Corner Regional Hospital, we have a radiation oncology department, an oncology department. And I did an exercise about 2 weeks ago by interviewing patients who comes to these departments. And 99.9% of the patient that comes to radiation department give us 100% score.
And that,
you know why?
That allows for me to see then the hard work that is being put in at the Cornwall Regional Hospital, the incredible team that you have down there. But admittedly, given that we are looking at another department, looking at labor wards, looking at gynecology and obstetrics, it's important for us to look at how all of our healthcare system can support our mothers and our babies and the fathers as well, because Ramon, the father of the baby here, and all the fathers who have also lost babies are also the ones that we put in our hearts tonight. Now, this is a critical conversation. We're completely out of time, Dr. Frey. I have a director who is beating me as we're coming out here, so I have to thank you. Professor Marvin Reed, head of the Medical Association of Jamaica. Dr. Giselle Rowe, consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, and Dr. Delroy Frey, clinical coordinator of the Western Regional Health Authority. Before I get beaten in here, I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and this is Lead Story Prime. Thank you so very much, all of you, for joining us inside today's edition of the show. On behalf of the CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Story Prime. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, wishing you a safe and fantastic evening. And up next, Fan Central.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes. Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.